Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are going to be looking at Tiny Epic Western. It's one of my favorite Tiny Epics, but I don't think it gets a lot of love just because some of the rules are hard to grasp, and currently there's no good solo videos on it. There's a couple out there from like pre-production, but some rules have changed, so if you watch those, you're not going to be playing it correctly, and even if you do read the rules, it might take you a couple times. It took me 10 times between multiplayer and solo mode to read these rules and really understand them, and that's going back and forth between BGG forums and looking at FAQs. So I thought I would just break it down in a simple how to play video, a setup video, which is going to be this video, and then we're going to be looking at it more in detail with a full-on solo mode playthrough. So in Tiny Epic Western Solo, you are going to be going up against a rival, which is just your opponent. The game is going to be played over 6 rounds, and at the end of 6 rounds, whoever has the most victory points wins the game. So let's go ahead and go over setup. The first thing you need to do is decide which color you want to be and decide which color you want the opponent to be, the rival. So I've gone ahead and selected to be the blue, and I've just selected just a character at random. I've gotten my 3 meeples and placed them on my character sheet. I have my bullet die ready to go, and each of my starting influences start at 1. I've also flipped my starting location spot from being this generic gray side to the blue side, since that's the one I will be playing on. And whichever opponent you're going up against, you're going to want to flip their location mat over to the colored side as well. So I'm going up against red, so I flipped this from the gray side to the red side. Starting at the top, you're going to place the town hall, and you want to make sure you place it on the 1 to 2 player side. That is noted with this little symbol. You can see here, there's none on this side, but on this side it's 1 to 2 players. You're also going to want to place your 3 industry markers on the town hall. You want to make sure the sheriff's office is down below, directly across from the town hall. And then after that, it doesn't really matter where you place your other locations. Next, you're going to take the building cards, you're going to give them a shuffle, and you're going to place them in the buy slots, as well as the port slots on the unused location mats. You can see here that we've placed a building on each of the buy slots, as well as a building on this porch, this porch, this porch, and at this time you need to decide which difficulty you're playing against. If you're just starting out, this is your first game, maybe you want to start on learner. So to adjust the difficulty, you're going to deal out a certain number of building cards to the rival based off the difficulty you're playing on. So if it's learner, which is kind of like easy, you're going to deal out 0 buildings. Beginner is 1, 2 is medium, 3 is hard, and 4 is epic. So we'll play on medium, so we'll just deal out 2 building cards to the opponent and place it under its porch. These are going to score victory points for it at the end of the game. And as you can see, it's going to give them 5 victory points to start. Next, you're going to deal out poker cards. So we're going to take this deck, we're going to deal out 2 to the rival space, 1 face up, 1 face down, and then poker cards along these tracks. And then we get 2 poker cards and we have to select one and discard the other. So with that, we are all set up. We are ready to start playing, but first let's go over just the basic premise of the game, what we're doing, and how rounds are played out. We'll get to the playthrough in the next video. So a game of Tiny Epic Western Solo is going to take place over 6 rounds. At the end of the 6th round, whoever has the most victory points wins. A round of Tiny Epic Western involves 4 phases. We're going to shuffle and deal new cards onto the table. We're going to place our posses, our workers. We're going to resolve the spaces that our workers are placed at. And then finally, we have the chance to buy new building cards, gaining victory points, and advancing the different industries there are in the game, which we'll go over. So the first phase is shuffle and deal. So at the beginning of each round, all of the poker cards are going to go back into the poker deck. We're going to shuffle them, and then we're going to place new poker cards just like we did during setup. That's going to happen during each round. For the building cards, any building cards in this middle area, these buy slots that have been bought, are going to get replaced by ones on the porches above them. So let's say, for instance, I had bought this one round, and going into the next round, this is now empty. To fill it up, we're simply going to take the building card on the porch and we're going to place it here. And we'll do that for each empty building card space. And then we will draw new building cards to go on the porches that we removed the cards and filled them with. The next phase of the game is called the Posse placement, and in this phase, we're going to take turns with us always going first. The player's always going to go first. We're going to be placing our workers on the board and either gaining instant benefits or waiting until the resolution phase, which is the third phase of the round, to possibly get better and more influence or other benefits. So during the placement phase, you get to go first. So we have two to start off. We have two workers to place, and you will simply look at one of the locations on the board, and you can place your worker at one of the action spots, worker placement spots on that location. So let's go through those now. So in a solo game, some of the locations are only going to have one spot to go to, such as the bank, unless you're playing against the yellow player. So for the bank, if you go here, you get an instant reward, that's what this blue exclamation point means, of a law. So you get to move up your law 1, and then you can convert any number of force, which is the little revolver symbol, to money +2. So in this instance, if I could reduce 1 force to get 3 money. And this porch slot will change as we buy buildings in this slot. The saloon, you can go to the porch, just like I talked about with the bank. And right now, if I were to go to the porch, I would gain 2 influence, and all other players gain 1 influence. So that'd be pretty good, since the rival never gains any sort of influence. We don't have to track that for them. Additionally, with the saloon, I can place my meeple here. If I place it on the left side, which means 1 foot on the left side and 1 foot covering this area, that means I get an instant reward. That means I get an influence of my choice, and that's it. But if I place it on the right side, I have a chance during the resolution phase to get 2 influence of my choice. And we'll see why that is a more risky proposition, because that is when dueling comes into play. Once again, the sheriff's office has a porch slot, and that will change throughout the game just based off what comes out. If you place a worker at the leftover spot, generally speaking, you can only ever buy 1 building per turn, and you have to buy the building that corresponds to the location match you are on. But if you go to this leftover spot on the sheriff's office, you get to buy an additional building on that round. If you go up here, and once again you have to choose whether you want to go on the left side or right side, or this left side or right side, you can change the value of your poker card by ±1, and this will take effect during the resolution phase. Additionally, you can change the suit of your poker card up or down 1. They do flow, so a 1 could turn to a 5, and a 5 could turn to a 1, and the lowest suit could turn to the highest suit, and vice versa. On the blue courthouse, we're not going to have any building cards to start the game with on the porch slot, since that is representing my victory points, and I have to buy those buildings and earn them. But if we go to these other spots, we can get an instant force, or we can wait to the resolution phase and possibly get 2 force. But once again, I'll talk about why here in a second, why that's a bit more risky. And I promise I'll talk about all of these on the cards here in a second. Then we have the hideout. If you go here, and this is once again, if you play against the green player, this is going to change the options. But since we're playing against red, this is turned to its grayed outside. The only spot you can go is up here to the porch. So there's going to be a card above it, and I could get to do that action. But the base action of this is I get a coin immediately, so I can move my coin up 1 Lastly, we have the town hall. There's no worker spots you can go on here. This is a handy dandy reference that you can say, okay, here's my suits in order from highest suit to lowest suit. Let's say I had a straight and it was a cowboy hat, and the rival had a straight and it was TP's. I would win because I would have the higher suit. If you're not familiar with poker, this is a reference to the best hands to the worst hands. Up here, this is going to mark the industry tracks, and this is going to come into play at the end of the game. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So going back to the worker placement aspect of this game, which is why I love this game. I love poker and I love worker placement games, and so this is the perfect combination of these systems. So on your turn, you're going to place one worker, and you're going to place it on one of the worker spots we just went through. So let's say, for instance, I went here, and I'm going on the right side of this. That means while I don't get an instant benefit, I am going to try to risk it during the resolution phase and hopefully have a better poker hand than the rival so that I can get this benefit as well as this benefit. So once you've placed one worker, if it was an instant benefit, you go ahead and get that. But if it's not, it's simply the AI's turn. So you're going to take the AI die and you're going to roll it. All right, this shows a 2. So it's going to go to the second location. So this is location 1, this is location 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's going to try to place a worker on the second location. So once again, so that is this one. And it's always going to try to place a worker on this right hand side of the worker placement. It will always try to place its worker on the action slot right here. And if it doesn't have it, such as the bank, it would just simply put it on its porch. So if it doesn't have the actions up here because you're playing in a solo game and some of them don't have it once you flip them over, if it doesn't have this, then you're going to put it on its porch. But in this instance, there are actions there to take. So it's always going to try to place it on the right side, the resolution side, the stronger effect. So it will take one of its meeples and it will place it there, even if you have a meeple there. This is going to generate a duel. We'll get to duels here in a second. So let's say, for the purposes of an example, it went to the saloon and it dueled me and it won. Now it goes back to my turn. I need to place my second meeple. So I could go back and duel the rival and try to knock them down, or I can go somewhere else. So let's say I went to my blue spot over here, and now the rival goes again. They're gonna roll their dice, and now it says 1. So if for its last worker, it's going to go to slot 1, which is the bank. There are no actions up here, so it will simply go to the porch. So going over this dice, there are 6 options on it. And we've said this is location 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what happens if you roll a 6? Well, in that case, the rival will go to wherever the player just went. So let's say I went here for my turn, it rolled a 6, it would go to exactly where I went and try to duel me. Additionally, let's say the rival, I just went and I went on the courthouse and it rolled a 2. It would go 1, 2, it already has a worker there, so it's not going to go there again. So it will go to the next location on the track. So in this case, location 3, which is the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office is a bit different. At the sheriff's office, the rival does not go to these worker placement spots and does not try to go for the porch. It will go to the leftover spot to try to block it from us. If we want to go there, we're going to have to duel it. After we've placed our workers, it's time to go on to the resolution phase. So in this instance, we have placed workers on the saloon, the courthouse, and the hideout. And so we're going to resolve the locations based off where we and the rival have placed. During the resolution phase, you're going to resolve any worker placement spots that have this little hourglass and these chips. So what we need to do is compare our poker hand by combining the poker cards to the left and right of the location we are on to the hand of the rival. So at this point, the rival is going to take both cards that it was dealt the one that you can see and the one that you can't see. It's going to flip over the one you can't see. Between these two cards, when we're resolving each location, it's going to make the best poker hand at that location. So for instance, in this case, it will use the 4 and say it has a pair of 4s with a 1 high card. Okay? And so at the beginning of the round, we were dealt 2 poker cards and had to discard one. So this is the one I kept. All right? So at this location, I have a pair of 4s and a 1. So that is a tie. So who wins? Once again, suit matters. So he has a suit of a hat and a TP. Here's his TP. Here's his hat. And I have a suit of a horseshoe and a hat. He is going to beat me out for that. Now in the solo mode, the rival never collects influence. They are there to block you and prevent you from collecting influence. In this case, since I had a worker down, I dueled and I had lost. I could not collect this prize right here, but I still had a chance at collecting this winner's pot. This is called the winner's pot on each of the locations, and whoever goes to that location has a chance of winning it, no matter if they're standing or if they have been knocked over. So in this case, the rival won the best hand, so I don't get that, and because I was laying down, and I don't get the winner's pot because it had a better hand than I did. Once again though, the rival will never collect resources, so you don't have to worry about giving it for influence. They don't even have a character sheet to track that. So you'll go location by location, starting from 1, going all the way up to 5, wherever you have workers at. So now we'll go to the courthouse. I have a worker here. Just because the rival does not have a worker here does not mean you're going to get free resources. You still have to beat them out in order to get the benefit. So in order to get this 2 force and these 2 laws, I need to beat them out for the poker hand. So once again, I will compare the poker hand of the rival, and it's going to pick the best card that fits with these 2 cards. So in this case, it would pick the 4 again, so it would have a pair of 4s and a 5 high card along with it. And it would compare it to mine, which I would have a pair of 4s and a 5. But once again, it beats me on suit. In that situation, I don't get any of the benefit here. I don't get this one, and I don't get the winner's pot. I have to beat the rival on the hand in order to claim the benefits. The last location, location number 5, the hideout. The rival was the only one that went there, and since it was the only one that went there, we don't have to resolve anything because once again, the rival does not collect resources or influence in this game. So why does that matter? We'll get to that here in a second. I would like to point out that as soon as a duel happens, whoever wins, whether it's you or the rival, you need to give this wanted card to whoever won. This is going to give whoever has it at the end of the game 2 victory points, and there's an ongoing effect. This one says if you are wanted at the beginning of phase 3, gain an influence of your choice. Now the AI is not going to do this. It mainly just wants this for the end of the game so it can get 2 victory points. Once again, I would like to emphasize the sheriff's office because these 2 worker placement spots, what causes a lot of confusion, these happen at the beginning of the resolution phase. So for instance, if I had gone here with one of my workers, which makes my card 1 less, which would technically make this from a 4 to a 3, that would not take place until the resolution phase. And why that matters is for dueling. And we'll get to dueling here in a second. But when you duel, you're going to be flipping over your cards and adding those card values to the dice number that you roll. And so those suits and numbers on your card are not affected until the resolution phase. Additionally, this happens at the beginning of the resolution phase. So if you plus or minus the value of your card by 1, or you plus or minus your suit by 1, you don't wait until the sheriff's office location is resolved to do that effect. So if you're fighting for this location up here and you have a 5 and you really want to make it a 4 so that you have a pair of 4s, if you placed a worker on the sheriff spot at one of those worker placement spots, it's going to change the value or suit of your card when you're resolving the bank. It doesn't wait until it goes all the way to the sheriff's office. That's very important. The fourth phase of the round is the buy phase. And so you and the Automa get to take turns buying a single building card, unless you go to the sheriff's office. If you place a worker at the leftover spot, you're allowed to buy 2 that round. But other than that, you're only allowed to buy 1 building. So to determine who gets to buy first, and this can be very important, especially if there's a 3 or 4 point building card out there that you and the Automa are both going after, you want to make sure that you're going first so that you can snatch it out from underneath them. So to determine who goes first, you're going to compare hands at the town hall. So once again, you're going to look at this card and make your best poker hand. So for me, I have a 4 high card because there's only a 4, a 3, and a 1. But for the rival, once again, at each location, they get to pick their best card. So it's not going to take the 4, it's going to take the 2 that it has, and it's going to make a straight with a 1, 2, and 3. So it would actually get to buy first. So the rival is going to buy buildings associated with the buy slot that it has workers placed. So in this example, if this was the round, it placed workers at the saloon and at the hideout. So it's going to look at both of those locations building buy slots, and it's going to buy the highest victory point card. In this case, there's a 4 and a 2, and the 4 came from the saloon and the 2 came from the hideout. So it's going to buy the 4-point card. And when it buys it, it adds it to its location mat, the porch slot, and it's going to slide in front, just like you would in a multiplayer game. And it doesn't matter if the rival had a standing up worker or not. So in this instance, let's say I had won the duel here. If it won this hand up here and was able to buy first, it could still buy this card even though it wasn't standing up because it placed a worker on this location slot. Then it's my turn to buy, and then I'm looking at my options and I can buy here or here, and since there's no building card here, this is my only choice. So you're going to need to use this strategy to your advantage to limit the building cards that the rival can buy. So you want to try to snatch them up from them. One thing to note, whenever the rival buys building cards, it never pays resources for them. It always just gets them because once again, it's not tracking their resources. And if the rival ever goes to the leftover spot, it's not going to buy a second building. But let's say we had gone to the leftover spot. All right, and now it's our turn. Well, we can choose from this spot since we went to the sheriff's office. We can choose this spot since we went to the courthouse as our first buy. So let's say the first buy we went here. And then since I went to the leftover sheriff spot, whatever buildings cards left over I can buy from. Like I can buy this card or this card even though I didn't go to the bank and even though I didn't go to the hideout. I can still buy those cards if I want to. So that gives you a little bit more flexibility. After you have purchased building cards, both you and the rival, whoever won the poker hand at the town hall gets to move the industry tracks up 1. So the different industries we have are mining, railroad, and wagon. And these are going to give extra points at the end of the game for whoever has a majority in those. So let's look at that more in detail now. Each round, whoever won the town hall gets to move one of these tokens up. So let's say I won it and I wanted to move mining up 1. So I moved it here. It is important to note that once a token gets moved forward on this track, it can never get moved backwards. So each move is permanent. These are going to give extra victory points, 1, 2, 3, for whoever has the majority of shares in these different industries. So let's say I won the town hall poker game up here. I had a better set of cards. I mean, I can choose which one. Do I want to move mining up one? I can move green up one. I can move purple up one. It's up to me. But how do we know what the rival is going to move up? So you're going to look at the last building card it purchased, which in this case was this top one, and it's a mining, and you're going to move that icon up. But let's say that card wasn't there, and it had just purchased this 3-pointer, and there's 2 icons on it. Which one do you choose? You always choose the leftmost. So let's say that's the one it just purchased. It would choose the green one instead of the purple one because that's the leftmost icon. But in this instance, it just bought this building card, so it's going to move up the mining track by 1. So that is the majority of the game. At the end of the 6th round, you're going to add up points from all the building cards you've collected. So whenever you buy building cards, you're going to place them under your porch here. And whenever the rival buys building cards, it's going to add to its porch here. And you're going to add up the victory points on the top right of each card for the rival, as well as for the buildings in your house. Whoever finishes with the wanted card is going to get an additional 2 points. And then the last thing to do is to see who has victory points from the 3 different types of industries. And for that, we're going to look to see the number of shares. So all you're going to do is look at the building cards you've collected throughout the game, and you're going to add up the icons of each of the type of industries on your building cards. So in this case, the rival has collected 3 icons of green, 1 icon of purple, and 1 icon of orange. Let's say that this is what the industry tokens look like at the end of the game. The rival had 3 green wagon tokens. Let's say on the building cards I purchased, I only had 2. So the rival would have the majority of shares in the wagon, and it would get an additional 3 points. And you're going to do this for each of the industries. Ties are broken just like they are in a multiplayer game, and in that case, you both get the number of victory points. At that point, you're going to total all those up. Victory points from your cards, victory points for whoever has the wanted sign, victory points from the 3 industries, and whoever has the most wins. If there's a tie, then it's broken by first, most building cards purchased, and second, the most total industry icons on your building cards you've purchased. If the tie is still there, the game ends in a tie. There's a couple of different rules I want to point out before we head on to our playthrough, and that is if you do not or cannot purchase a building on your turn, then for your next turn, you get to get a 3rd posse. So you get to stand up your 3rd worker on your board. Normally, you can only place out 2 of your workers, but if you cannot or do not want to buy a building because either you want to save up your resources or you don't have enough, then you get to stand up your posse, and for your next turn, you can place 3 workers out. Now, with that said, in the solo mode, the AI will always place the same number of workers that you're placing. So if you're going to get that benefit, it's going to get that benefit. Additionally, we need to talk about dueling. So let's say me and the AI both went to the saloon. You're both going to roll your bullet dice. So I get a 3 and it gets a 2. For you, you have to add the value of the poker cards you saved in your hand at the beginning of a round. So for me, that is a 4 plus a 3. So I have a total of 7. For the AI, you aren't going to use the cards it was the 2 cards it was dealt at the beginning of the round. You're simply going to take a card from the leftover poker cards and you're going to reveal one and then discard it after use. So reveal it. It's a 5. So 5 plus 2 is a 7. Ties are broken just like they are in the multiplayer game. Whoever is the attacker will lose. It's the defender who has the advantage there. But you can spend 1 influence of any kind to either make the AI draw a new card or to reroll their dice. Just like in the multiplayer game, whoever wins the duel remains standing up and the other player gets knocked down. Additionally, Make sure with each duel that you're giving this to the player or the rival that won. And that is how you play Tiny Epic Western solo. I know that was a lot to digest, and for me, I like seeing games played in action. I'm going to be posting a playthrough of Tiny Epic Western solo mode, so I hope to see you then.